So by applying a hot in the ground to terminals 85 and 86 on your relay, it creates an electric magnetic field. So this would actually create the latch or lever to make the contact flip. Welcome back to Bad Attitude C10. Today I figured I'd discuss these relays with you since we're about to get into a lot of wiring, and I know some people may have some questions. Now, the one in my hand right now is just a simple plain Jane little Bosch Ice Cube style relay, and this one has a mounting tab. You can have them that have mounting tabs or not. This is a Potter Brumfield version. This one does not have the mounting tang, as you can see, but they are identical in size, shape, and everything's there. Now, as you can see on the relays, there are diagrams or a little schematic, whatever you want to call it, on the relays that show you how to hook it up. But for right now, I was just going to go over what these pins do and how we're going to utilize it. Now, number 30 is going to be your battery power for the relay. So it's going to be the power source. 87A is an alternate spade, which is going to be hot when the relay's at rest. 87 will be hot when you energize the coil wires. Now, on your coil wires, you're going to have an 85, which is a ground, and an 86, which is a hot positive signal wire. Now, these relays come in all shapes and sizes and different amperages, and this one right here is actually a 4-pin. So the only difference between this one, it is a 50 amp versus the 3040 like the smaller one, and as you can tell, the prongs are a little larger, but as far as how it hooks up, it's all about the same. So again, 30 is going to be our power input from the battery. 87 is actually going to be energized in your output to the device, like your fan or whatever it is. 85 again will be a ground, and the number 86 terminal will again be a 12-volt signal wire for the coil. So I figured I'd take a couple of these relays apart to kind of give you a visual of exactly what they're doing and how they work. There are wires that are all coiled up. That is your actual coil that creates the electric magnetic field that's going to make the lever or the arm switch over to switch it from the 87A position to the 87. So your coil, again, actually when you energize it with a hot and a ground, creates an electric magnetic field, and it basically magnetizes the coil and moves the arm over. And when you unplug either side, the hot or the ground, it will actually drop that magnetic field, and the lever or arm will switch back to its original position. So basically what you're doing is you're running a lot of amperage on your 30 supply wire spade, and then when it switches over to 87, it transfers that amperage and current to the 87 spade, which then would go to your pump, your fan, or whatever it may be. And the coil only requires a minute amount of amperage and voltage to work versus the large amount that you'd be running on the 30 and the 87. So that's why it's beneficial to use a relay, because instead of having to use some big heavy wire, you can actually get away with using, a smaller signal wire, which we'll get into that here in a second. But again, I'm going to go ahead and show you how this works and power it up, and let you see the contactor on this larger one, because it was kind of hard to see on the small one. So again, we're only going to be utilizing the 86 and the 85 with a hot and a ground to show you the actual arm mechanism latching over. Now on this larger one, you can actually see it a little better, and the way that these actually work is whenever I hook up the hot and the ground for the coil, again it creates a magnetic field and it's going to latch over. This requires only enough power to override the spring that's keeping the contact held in the other position. So you're dealing with a minute amount of voltage and amperage required to move or latch this over, to then allow the larger amperage wire to send the power to the source that you're trying to utilize it for. So instead of basically having to have a large diameter wire that can carry a lot of amperage for the draw that the function needs, you can use a heavy wire in a shorter distance, have a relay sitting there, and then your signal wire could come from, the cab of the truck or the front of the car, and this function might be in the very rear or up in the engine compartment, but you're only having to send a small amount of amperage to switch a coil. not supply the function you're doing. Now here you can see the difference between the 30-40 amp and the 50 amp relays, and it is night and day. So next I'm going to show you how to actually check them. So when I first got into using a lot of stuff and working on aerial equipment for a company called Phoenix here in Waco, and troubleshooting and stuff, you could hear a lot of different people say different things, and they basically say, hey, if you just power up the 85 and 86 on the coil and it's latching the relays good. Well, that's not always true. Just because the coil is switching on and you can hear the lever mechanism click, that doesn't actually mean that your current is actually transferring from 30 to 87, or if it even still has current from the 30 to the 87A in the rest position. So that's why you need to come up with a way that you can actually test and be sure that the actual output is working on the relay as well. Because if you just go by, hey, well, I heard it click, it's got to be good, you can chase your tail for a long time. Now, mind you, I'm just showing you how to check this right now in this method, and always use and utilize the ground that is going to it. I don't have a lot of room to show you by probing 85 with the ground, as while it's here, but I do know the wire's good because I just put it together for y'all to see this, and so it's all there. But if you're testing this on your own or somebody's equipment or something like that, never rely on a chassis ground or something like that. If you're troubleshooting components, utilize the hot and the ground on that component. Otherwise, you might be chasing the same problem for over and over, hours and hours, days and days, and it was all because it had a bad crimp or a bad wire or a broke wire or a little broken wire inside the relay. So anyway, so here we go. So I am using a small battery, and it's only got 10.9 volts, but we got the 85 hooked up in the 30 source, and now I'm going to put this trigger wire. So right now on this 4-prong relay, 87 should be hot. So there you go. You can see it's got 10 volts, and when I disconnect the signal wire, which is on 86, now 87 is dead. Now it's hot. I'm going to leave it on there and show y'all. Now, there's some people that talk about, oh yeah, 85 and 86 matter. Not on a Bosch style relay, this particular style. Right now, I'm unhooking the ground circuit and using it as a trigger wire, and it's working the same. I even can flip these two wires. So if that is not written explicitly on the information of the relay you have, and it's a standard style Bosch relay, the coil wires can be accidentally put on wrong, and it will still function as long as you have a hot and a ground. So there you have it. That's the way that the 4-prong is going to work. Now on the 5-prong, the only difference is, remember, instead of just having a 30 and an 87 and needing to energize the coil for the 87 to get hot, you have an additional spade or prong in the middle, which is 87A. Some people call it an alternate spade. So when the relay is at rest and the coil is not energized, 87A will have the voltage that is supplied to terminal 30. So whenever we hook this up, we're going to do the same thing. The ground coil wire is going on 85. We're going to put a supply wire from the battery to 30, and that's our power wire. So if it's a larger ampere component, that's where it's going to be. So right now with 85 hooked up, and you can see we have 30 is hot, but there's no coil wire. 87A was hot when we probed it. So again, here's 87A is hot, and that's with it at rest. Now we're going to energize the coil wire with our 12 volt signal wire. 87A is now dead. You come down to the bottom prong, which is 87, it is now hot. So we remove the signal or trigger wire again, and you notice it's not hot. Go back to 87A, it's hot. So it's just like a glorified switch, guys. But what we're using is a minute amount of voltage to transfer a contact point that will allow larger amperage speed to go through it. Now, this, as you can tell, is a handful using all that. So I created this little device that I'm about to show you, and this is what I had on my service truck whenever I moved up to Missouri and was doing service calls, because it gets kind of old and tiring using little alligator clips, jumper wires, and stuff like that. So I made me up a little relay tester, and it's got a momentary switch and two LEDs, and as you can see, one LED is marked 87, the other is 87A. So I can use a 12 volt power supply and then a ground wire, and then I'm basically hooked up and ready to go. So again, guys, I'm going to do the 30-40 amp relay in just tidbit. Some people wonder why it's a 30 and a 40 amp. Well, here's the deal. When it's in the position and 87A is hot, it's being held in position by a spring, and so it's rated at 30 amps. When the coil's energized and it's latched over to make 87 hot, that magnetic field is going to hold the contact snugger, and it's going to have less resistance because it's got a good contact. It's rated at 40 amps, so that's why some of them are flipped. Now here you go. I put the relay in. It's a regular Bosch Ice Cube style, and with the coil not energized, 87A is hot, and when I flipped the momentary switch, 87 was hot. Now this is the standard one, and I'm now going to show you that even if you have the style that has a little mounting tang, just because it's got a tang, it still is the same thing. So again, we'll just push it in here and plug it in, and as you can see, as soon as we put it in and it's at rest, 87A is hot. We energize the coil, 87's hot, 87A. So that's just pretty much it in a nutshell, guys. Now I hope this video, I know it's a little lengthy, but I hope it helps you understand relays a little better, and I'll see you next time.